Justine Bateman was everywhere. Every Tuesday night, 55 million Americans sat down on their couches and watched her. She made them laugh. She made them feel things. She was one of the most recognized faces in the entire country. Teenage girls wanted to be her. Parents loved her. Critics praised her. And then, almost overnight, she was gone. Most people assumed she just couldn't handle the pressure. Maybe she lost her talent. Maybe she made bad choices. That's what Hollywood wanted you to think. But the real story is completely different. And honestly, once you hear the truth, you're going to be angry. Because what happened to Justine Bateman wasn't an accident. It was a decision. A decision made by people in power who decided she no longer fit the mold they had built for her. This is the story they never told you. Justine Bateman was born on February 19, 1966, in New York. Her father worked in film. Her family looked normal from the outside. But underneath, things were different. When her younger brother Jason landed a role on a popular television show at just 12 years old, their parents quickly figured out something important. Managing their kids' careers brought in more money than actually working regular jobs themselves. So that became the plan. The children weren't just kids anymore. They were business. When Justine was 16 years old, she landed the role of Mallory Keaton on a new NBC show called Family Ties. It sounds like a dream, right? A teenager getting her big break. But here's what actually happened when she got that role. Her parents were thrilled. Not because their daughter was going to be on television, but because of what it meant for them financially. Her dad immediately found her an apartment. Her mom helped her pack her bags. Her younger brother started planning what he would do with her bedroom. Most 16-year-olds are sneaking out of the house. Justine was being pushed out of it. She was a child being treated like a business partner. And that set the tone for everything that came after. Family Ties became one of the biggest shows in television history. At its peak, 55 million people watched every single week. Think about that number for a second. The most popular shows on television today struggle to get 9 million viewers. Back then, with only 3 major channels and no internet to pull people away, being on a hit show meant you were everywhere. You couldn't walk down a street without being recognized. Justine earned 2 Emmy nominations and a Golden Globe nomination. Her co-star Michael J. Fox said she was amazing, fantastic, and tremendously talented. Even the names Mallory and Justine started appearing more frequently across the country because of her. Parents were literally naming their daughters after her character. From the outside, her life looked perfect. But nobody knew what was happening behind the scenes. While 55 million people tuned in every week to watch her, Justine was quietly falling apart. The constant attention on her appearance triggered something dark. She developed eating disorders. Not one, but multiple at the same time. She was dealing with anorexia, bulimia, and compulsive overeating all at once. She would run off the set between scenes just to get sick in the bathroom. She would come back, stand under the bright lights, smile for the cameras, and nobody noticed anything was wrong. For 10 years, while America watched her play a lovable, happy teenager, she was destroying her own body in secret. The show that looked like her greatest gift had become her personal prison. And then came the moment that planted a seed of anger inside her that would grow for decades. On the show, her character Mallory went to college. Justine watched this and desperately wanted the same thing for herself. She went to the writers and asked for college recommendation letters. They happily gave them to her. She started researching schools. She was excited. For the first time in years, she felt hope about something outside of acting. Then a producer called her into a meeting and sat her down. "Honey, you can't go. You're under contract." Just like that, the dream was gone. Justine tried to negotiate. Could she maybe attend a few classes and still do the show? Could they work something out? The answer was no. Paramount Studios owned her time completely. She had to sit on set and watch her fictional character get an education on television, while she herself was denied that exact same thing in real life. She was 17 years old. She had no say in any of it. The adults around her, the ones who were supposed to protect her, were nowhere to be found. That moment stayed with her for 25 years. When Family Ties finally ended in 1989, most people expected Justine to transition smoothly into movies and a long Hollywood career. That's what usually happened with television stars back then. But things didn't go that way. The warning signs had actually already appeared a year earlier when she hosted Saturday Night Live in 1988. It was supposed to be a career highlight. Instead, the performance was rough. Critics were not kind. The episode revealed something important. Justine had been so deeply associated with one specific character, Mallory Keaton, that audiences struggled to see her as anything else. And in Hollywood, that is a very dangerous problem. Still, she kept working. She appeared in films and smaller television projects. She did everything she was supposed to do. But the offers kept getting smaller. The roles kept getting less interesting. And then, by the mid-1990s, her agent sat her down and delivered a message that was beyond cruel. If you want to keep working, you need to get surgery on your face. They weren't suggesting it gently as a future option. They were telling her directly that her career depended on it. She was in her late 20s. She went to 3 different plastic surgeons in Beverly Hills. She sat in their offices while they literally marked up her face with a pen, pointing out everything they wanted to change. Cut here. Lift this. Remove that. One surgeon told her she was, quote, a candidate for the works. Justine walked out of all 3 offices. She said no. And the moment she said no, Hollywood said goodbye. The roles dried up almost completely. Her agents stopped calling with serious offers. The message was crystal clear. She wasn't willing to play by the rules. So the industry had no use for her. Suddenly, the woman who had been watched by 55 million people a week couldn't get a decent part in a television show. Here is what makes this even more infuriating. Justine Bateman didn't lose her talent. She didn't lose her mind. She didn't fall apart from drugs or scandal. She simply refused to change her face. That was the crime. That was the unforgivable thing. In an industry that survives on controlling how women look, she dared to say no. And they made her pay for it. By the year 2000, Justine had grown tired of waiting by the phone. She made a decision that shocked everyone who knew her. She let her Screen Actors Guild card lapse. She called her manager and said she was done. She meant it. She started a clothing company called Justine Bateman Designs, selling handmade knitted pieces to upscale stores in New York. For 3 years, she poured herself into something that had nothing to do with cameras or appearances or Hollywood's opinions. And it worked. But it wasn't her true passion, so she eventually closed it down. What the clothing business did give her, though, was something priceless. It proved to her that she could exist outside of Hollywood's approval. She didn't need them to survive. She didn't need them to matter. That realization changed everything. In 2001, she married a man named Mark Fluent, a real estate developer. Together, they had 2 children. For the first time in her life, she was just a regular person. No cameras, no industry judgment, just a woman living her life. And somewhere in the middle of all that quiet, she found herself again. Then, around 2010, Justine did something that shook her deeply. She was doing research for a book she was writing about fame. She needed some information from her earlier years. So she opened Google and typed in her own name. What came up in the search suggestions stopped her cold. The autocomplete read, Justine Bateman looks old. She was 41 years old. She clicked through and found forums full of strangers tearing her apart. They were posting photos of her face and debating every line and wrinkle. They were suggesting procedures she should get. They were talking about her like she was a problem that needed to be solved. At first it got to her. She started second-guessing herself. She started wondering if maybe they were right. There were so many of them, and only one of her. That kind of noise can get inside your head if you let it. But then something clicked. She started doing research. She interviewed around 20 famous people about their own experiences with fame and aging. She dug into why society treats a woman's aging face as though it is broken and in need of repair. The more she researched, the angrier she got. Not angry at herself, angry at the system that had made her feel that way. angry at the same industry that had spent decades telling women their natural faces were problems to fix. She turned that anger into something powerful. In 2018, she published a book called Fame, The Hijacking of Reality. It broke down what fame actually does to a person's identity, how it gets tangled up with your sense of self-worth, and what happens when it disappears. Then in 2021, she published another book called Face, One Square Foot of Skin. The cover showed her own face marked up with a plastic surgeon's pen, just like those consultations years ago. Inside, she wrote about why society pushes women to surgically alter themselves and why she refused. Women across the country responded by the thousands. They told her she had given them permission to stop hating their own reflections. Meanwhile, Justine had gone back to school. In 2012, at 46 years old, she enrolled as a freshman at UCLA to study computer science and digital media. People thought she had lost her mind. A famous actress, going back to school for one of the hardest technical majors available? She cried in her car after getting exam scores back. She struggled. She worked harder than she ever had in her life. In June 2016, at 50 years old, she graduated with her bachelor's degree. She had reinvented herself completely. And she wasn't done. When Hollywood's writers went on strike in 2023 over the use of artificial intelligence, Justine became one of the loudest voices in the room. She warned that if actors didn't fight for strong protections immediately, studios would eventually be able to replace human performers entirely using AI technology. She served as an AI consultant for the Actors Union during negotiations. She pushed hard. And when the final deal was reached and she felt it didn't go far enough, she went on national television and said so. She founded an organization called Credo 23, which certifies films made completely without generative AI. The woman Hollywood tried to erase had become one of its most vocal critics. Because here's the thing about Justine Bateman. The industry thought that when she walked away, she was defeated. They thought she would disappear quietly and never be heard from again. They had done this to women before, told them to change, watched them refuse, and then replaced them with someone more obedient. But Justine didn't disappear. She built a life so full and so real that Hollywood's rejection became irrelevant. She raised a family. She earned a college degree at 50. She wrote books that changed how women see themselves. She fought for workers' rights in an industry that had treated her like a product. The real reason Justine Bateman vanished after Family Ties wasn't a breakdown. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a failure of talent or ambition. It was a simple decision. She refused to let Hollywood rewrite her face, her voice, and her worth. And for that, they tried to make her disappear. They failed.